Welcome, another women's national team session, this time covering the concept of reading. So, what is reading? There are some other words for it. Somebody who has good court sense, that might be a high ability to read the game. Another word you've probably heard a lot is volleyball IQ or awareness or anticipation. They're all terms that mean that somebody with good reading ability knows what's happening faster as the play develops. So, what is it really? The fancy term for it is perceptual expertise, the ability to perceive things, especially with your sight, seeing and recognizing patterns in real time. That's exactly what we have to do on a volleyball court. We have these patterns unfolding. Every single play starts out with limitless possibilities, and these patterns will tell us eventually what's going to happen. So that was certainly one of my competitive advantages. I got to start the game when I was just 6 years old. And so I got tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of chances to see real volleyball unfolding before me to build up this pattern awareness. So there are some myths about how people see the game, myths about people who see the game really well. And one of the myths is that people who have great volleyball IQ or great reading ability have much better sight than the rest of us. That is not true. It's not like they've got 20/10 or 25 vision. They have the same reasonably good vision or better that the rest of us do. So it's not a question of having really sharp eyes. Another myth that happens, that goes around this term of reading, is that people will say that you're born with this ability. It's almost like there's a reading gene in volleyball. That also is not true. We're born very much blank slates. We don't have any ability to read volleyball. There's no gene. But there are some realities, and one of them is that people build up like an encyclopedia. So one of the characteristics of good readers is that they have this encyclopedia, or I might also call it like a file of all these patterns and a file cabinet. And so over the course of time, as you've seen more and more volleyball, you have these patterns stored away, and you can flip through and get to the right one or two or three cards that the play might be. So that would be one reality, is building up this visual encyclopedia. Another reality is the fact that we want to see these patterns in real time. There's a quote from somebody, an article I read about visual expertise quite a while ago that talked about a goalkeeper in hockey. And one of the great players of all time in hockey, Wayne Gretzky, was skating down at his goal with the puck, and the goalie was just thinking, oh my God, what does he see that I cannot see right now? And it's somewhat of a panic, because Wayne Gretzky had this great encyclopedia of pattern recognition. So another reality to seeing the game really well is being able to focus on the right things. People who haven't played much volleyball, they tend to ball watch a lot. They just follow the ball here and then follow the ball there, and their eyes go all over the place. They spend short periods of time on lots of different things. Very good readers of the game spend more time on fewer things. They understand what are the important things that I need to be looking at right now, and they spend more time on that. By having a proper focus, learning a sequence of their eyes. And then finally, they use all that information and they sift down, as I said, at the start of a play, all possibilities could happen. But every 1/10 of a second that the play extends or transpires, it means that you can start reducing down these possibilities. Let's say the pass goes off the net. Well, now we can rule out the possibility of, most likely, of a quick attack. So we get to narrow down the possibilities. So that's a lot of the realities of reading. It's pattern recognition, being able to look at the right things for a longer period of time and sift down and understand what those patterns are. Now, I like to think of it also in terms of, especially when we look at a hitter or at a server, there is an idea of baseline versus Hinky. That's part of recognition too. A hitter taking a normal swing, I would call that baseline. And so when you train in your gym, wherever that is, you should be building up these visual patterns of the hitters that you play with and against so that you can defend them better, block them better. But then there's the times that I call Hinky, where there's something off. And that comes from a story I read many years ago about border agents actually training as they wave cars past them on the way back into the United States. At first, they had no clue, these trainees, but after 6, 7, 9, 10,000 cars go by, they start recognizing these patterns. They couldn't even put words to these patterns, but there was something, and the term they used was hinky about the car. Maybe it was sitting a little lower and there were more people in than there should have been. Maybe the driver was acting a little nervous. So that's where hinky comes in, and it's a really important thing to recognize in volleyball. So there are 5 main strategies to trying to help build our reading ability. Obviously, I have them here: demonstration, time slices, slow motion video, video freeze, and real volleyball. So let's dive into the first one, and that is just some simple demonstrations. Certainly this would be more of, I don't know who that goofy guy is there taking a swing. Actually, I do know. That is more of a baseline swing. Somebody who has a left arm up, as right-handers often do, and an elbow that gets back. The elbow gets back means I can now put more force into the ball. That would be a baseline, hard-driven ball swing. Then instead of elbow back, a hitter might have elbow high. That tells you that there's not this ability to take hard-driven swings. And so this would be more of a hinky approach, or a hitter in the air who's looking hinky. Then there's also elbow low. Wow, I'm looking goofier there as it goes. I must have really mistimed this ball. Anyway, that too would be major hinky. And I'm not put myself in any kind of ability to take a normal, hard-driven swing at the ball. And then finally, who knows? In fact, that would be your first homework question on this. With a hitter like this, leaning back, where is it most likely that a hitter on the opposing left side of the court, that is over here hitting at you from zone 4, where do you think that hitter might be more apt, more likely to hit the ball? And bonus question, what did this hitter do wrong in his approach to put himself in this position, leaning backwards somewhat as he's looking up at the ball? Okay, so those are the demonstrations. Oh, and of course, here's another example. It's not the clearest, but hopefully you can see it. These are actually grabbed where I just snipped some video, some still pictures off of USA video. This is a former German opposite who did some nice playing for lots of years in her career. On the left, you can see her elbow back. On the right, you can see her elbow up. So clearly there's something different, very different there. Those things are not equal at all. One is baseline and one is hinky. So right there you have clues as a blocker and as a defender on the floor as to what's going to happen or what's not going to happen, what you get to rule out, to sift out. Now, on to strategy 2. You can also look at some time slices. These are some slices that I took, again, off live video. They're not the clearest, but hopefully they give you a reasonable idea of the picture here. This is a server who in the men's game, actually from the Beijing Olympics, who served 2 consecutive serves. He's a Russian player against the U.S. And one of them was a hard-driven serve, and the other was an off-speed serve, a Hinky serve. Here, everything looks pretty similar early in his approach. Then when we move over or move forward 5 or 6 short frames, we get to see things are looking different, clearly different. One of these, I'll let you say which in your homework assignment, is clearly going to be, is more of a baseline, more of a hard-driven serve, and the other is more of a Hinky, more of an off-speed serve. So we'll look at contact now on these 2 serves. Again, this is the serve coming at us. And let's see how many, this is your homework assignment, how many differences can you pick out between these 2 pictures? Because remember, having good volleyball vision, having good reading ability, you don't need to identify all 8. You just need to pick out one that stands out and gives you all the information you need to know. But how many can you come up with? So that's your assignment. Okay, I was able to come up with 8 on these. Hopefully you came up with a bunch too. On one, on the left, the more hard-driven play, his shoulder is dropped lower as he's raising his hitting shoulder up higher. The left hand is higher on the hard-driven ball because he's putting more emphasis into this swing. I've got the left arm, there's more tension in the hard-driven ball. The ball is more in front of his hitting shoulder when he's hard driving the ball, and then it's more above his hitting shoulder on the right where it's a Hinky off-speed swing. So that's 4. Number 5, he's looking more forward in the hard-driven ball, looking more up at the ball in the off-speed shot. Number 6, body is less vertical in the hard-driven ball. 7, left leg is more vertical, and instead of the 2 legs being about even. And finally, the right knee is twisted in more in the hard-driven ball. So there's lots of differences, and remember, all you need to do is pick out one, and you have a much better idea of what's coming. And if you're a passer, that's hugely helpful if you have somebody hitting really hard at you or not, and then you know that you're probably going to move forward to play the ball. Okay, so now we will move on to the 3rd strategy, which is to take a look at some slow motion video. This video is of a particular outside hitter from the Dominican Republic who actually has a very deceptive open hand tip. So we're going to look, and I've put the video in slow motion and side by side. So focus I'm going to run this several times. Focus to your left on her in her approach, and just take a look at some of the things that she does as she drives this ball hard. I'll go back again. You can see that elbow going back. You can see her feet kicking. You can see her left arm pulling taut and down. There's all kinds of things to notice in this video. Whoop, okay, we're back. Now, I want you to take a look at the right side. This is the off speed. Until about there, things look pretty similar. And she actually does a much better job than most even international attackers in getting that right elbow, her hitting elbow back to make it look like she's going to swing. But then things start softening up here, and you can see how her hand goes up. Her legs aren't kicking hard. Her left arm isn't taut. Lots of differences between these two. So hang on. I'll now run a version, and here it is. And this is one where I've added graphics to help point your eyes to a couple of key things. Again, take a look to your left. And there's going to be a graphic that's going to attach to her hand, her hitting hand right there, almost like a little target. So watch the path that that takes. I call it the upside down cursive E. It has to whip around to get enough force to be able to allow her to hit at close to her maximum velocity. Watch that hand whip around. So that is the upside down cursive E. Now take a look on the right at the slow motion version. Watch, there's no whip at all. There's no upside down cursive E. Her hand goes straight up to the ball. That's a dead giveaway that she's hinky, that she's not going to attack this ball. This gives most defenders fits internationally, but if you know what to look for, you're not going to fall susceptible to that as much. Now back to the left. Look at her foot, and that would be her right foot. It looks like to us on our left, but watch how hard that foot kicks as she makes her hard-driven attack swing. And then look on the right, the soft example, the hinky example, and there's no kick whatsoever. That doesn't mean you're looking at her feet. Obviously, you can't be looking at a hitter's feet. You have to be looking much more at her elbow, but even though that vision is centered on her elbow or her shoulder, there are things you can see in your peripheral vision that are going to give away her intentions. All right, now I'm going to flip videos to a version from the end line. Same kind of thing. Now she's actually attacking at us through the net. And on the left, you can see the left elbow whips behind her head and comes forward. And then on the right, sorry, did I say left elbow? I meant right elbow, her hitting elbow. On the right, her elbow never disappears and the hand just goes straight up to the ball. Again, look at, and this time there's going to be a little circle that shows up every so often around her hitting hand. So there it is, the circle, and in fact, I'll try to, let's see if I can freeze it as we go here. Look at her hand disappeared behind her head as it whips around. It's now back behind her neck. She's swinging so hard at this ball. That's part of her baseline, her normal hard swing. And then we go forward. But if you look to, let's go back a little. If you look on the right, her hand stays in front of her the whole time. All big giveaways in this slow motion video as to how you're going to have a better time seeing the ball. And I just said, see the ball there. What I really meant was see the hitter and see the developing pattern. Now we go on to strategy number 4, which is actually freezing some video and seeing if you can figure out what's going to happen next as we freeze it at a certain point. So we're going to be looking at a match USA against Brazil from the summer of 2017 on World Grand Prix. And we'll be looking at the Brazilian setter across the net. So I'm going to run these clips. We'll look at about 3 of them, and this will be a little homework for you to see if you can predict where the Brazilian setter, who is about to run in to set from zone 1 in right back, and we'll see if I can freeze it at the right point and not give it away too soon. So here we go. Serve comes at her, and I froze it. The ball is still a yard or more from her hands. Where do you think she's going to set this ball? What's the most likely chance? Maybe 0.2 of a second ago, you couldn't rule out some things. Now, I think you can rule out some things as to what she's going to set. I'll advance it a tiny bit more. So now the ball's in her hands. Where do you think she's setting the ball? She has 4 choices. I'll show you with my cursor. Hopefully that shows up. Barely does. She has a hitter on the left. She has a hitter out of the back court, a quick hitter in front of her, and then finally behind her, she has a hitter on the far sideline. So there it is. I'm guessing that a lot of you saw that her hands were quite far out in front of her, meaning less likely that the ball is going to go behind. Okay, let's go on to the next clip. We've got a transition play. Where do you think this one's going? I haven't even gotten it 3 feet close to her yet. It's probably 4 or 5 feet from her hands. But there might be some things that might give it away. I'm going to back it up a little and freeze it a little later for you. Again, what do you think is going to happen? I see some kicking there also, which is a tendency of a number of setters who might be trying to make the ball go to a certain place. And we roll the video going backwards. So some giveaways. We go to one last example. We will freeze right in her hands. Homework assignment. Where do you think she's going with this? Will unfreeze. Went out. So she did not actually set quick on any of those plays based on where that hand placement was regarding in relation to her head. Hands forward tended to tell us something. Hands higher tended to tell us something. So again, this is a video freeze strategy. And this can be really effective, especially reading opposing setters and opposing hitters. And for that matter, if you're a passer, especially when you have a server coming at you, there's some good things to be seen from that. But more and more videos is becoming accessible, becoming available at every level now. Lots more video happening in high school and clubs, certainly in college and beyond. But these are things where you can just run simple video on any device, your computer, a tablet, a phone, and freeze it and make it a game, make it a contest with find a buddy and pick 10 clips and just say, all right, we'll freeze it here. We'll both write down our answers and we'll compare. We'll see how many we can get right. Where's the setter going to go with this ball? What's the hitter going to do? What's the server going to do? What zone is she going to serve? Is she going to serve short or deep? Those kinds of things. And then we go on to the last strategy, and that's just the best one, seeing a lot of volleyball. And that's why in our USA gym, we try to have the conditions as game-like as possible. So, for example, you won't see many people standing on a box and attacking from that standing position off the box because we don't see that in real volleyball. We try not to involve coaches too much because I've been watching volleyball a long time and over 50 years, and I have yet to see a coach serve in volleyball. Now, if the coach is the only one available, then the coach probably has to do some serving. But seeing live, real volleyball as much as possible, as defenders, as blockers, will help us build this visual encyclopedia, this file cabinet of patterns, both on individual players and on teams in their systems. And this is a great way to build up these patterns in your head so that you have more, you have a very deep and thorough encyclopedia. So again, you have demo. I showed you a little of that. Some time slices, slow-mo video. We got to look at that Dominican outside hitter. Certainly video freeze is something you could use a lot. And then real volleyball, especially games maybe where hitters are encouraged to do something hinky once in a while. And you put that all together, and I'm excited for the possibilities in you building your ability to read the game and building deep and wide pattern recognition. Good luck.